I actually got to meet Sergey, Brin. I got to meet,
What? You did?
that guy Eric Schmidt. Like I had lunch with Eric Schmidt,
That
and,
guy,
and, and
yeah.
like, and it was just like him and me at the Google cafeteria in Mountain View for like an hour, and he was just asking me about Java servers and stuff like this.
All right, welcome to an episode of Founderlicious. We're here with Larry Kim today. Very excited to have you, Larry. Thanks for coming on.
Right, you guys.
And Larry Kim, for those of you who don't know him, is probably best known for starting WordStream and bringing that to a successful exit, as well as just being a pretty incredible marketer in general, I'd say. Are you up to millions of followers on social media, or is it hundreds of thousands still?
Who's counting? It's a lot, up there.
It's a lot. Your stuff has been read and still continues to be read by millions of people. Your digital marketing prowess is somewhat unmatched, I'd say. So we really appreciate you having or taking the time to be with us today, and we're excited to talk about your story.
Awesome, thanks, guys.
All right, so we were talking a little bit before the call. We wanted to kind of go back to little Larry back in I guess it would have been the 90s. That's when I was in high school too. You were growing up in Canada though, right?
In Winnipeg, yep.
In Winnipeg? All right. So early 90s, I think, I had a computer in my house. You could kind of go to the library and do a little bit of stuff with the internet. People were building websites. That was a popular thing. What were you doing when you were in high school, with computers, with entrepreneurship? How were things looking on your end at that point in time in your life?
In terms of computers, I was at a private school that had a pretty strong computer science department, and they were even teaching like data structures courses, data structures and algorithms courses, like sorting and all this stuff, like at the you know uh, high school level. So that was very informative. But in terms of entrepreneurship, I know people have all sorts of stories about like paper routes and lemonade stands, and I was definitely no exception to that kind of stuff. Had a lot of different entrepreneurial endeavors. Do you want to hear about them?
Yes, tell us about them. Tell us about your paper routes.
Um, of course we did all that stuff, but like I think one of the first kind of accidental entrepreneurial endeavors that I engaged in was going to this World Boy Scout Jamboree in South Korea in '91. And the story is just apparently there's like some kind of a tradition in the Boy Scouts where you trade patches basically. Okay. And it's kind of like a 1-to-1 thing. You're supposed to trade one patch for another patch. Okay. And that's how that's supposed to work. Unfortunately, I forgot to bring my patches. And so
Small oversight.
but I ended up leaving the event with like almost 80 of them, like almost out of like 100 countries present. And so basically this little hack was, basically I was able to barter for like one patch. Okay. And then using a series of kind of trading up maneuvers where you like get the patch from like the Tahiti contingency, which is like 3 people. So it's like the most the most sought after item amongst the 100,000 people there. And then just you're still supposed to do 1-to-1, but people were so desperate to get these rare items that they would trade 10 for 1 or 5 for 1 or 20 for 1. And just repeating that process. I just remember on the flight home thinking like, holy moly, like how the heck did I end up with this many things starting with nothing? And I think that was kind of a first taste for entrepreneurship. Kind of, what is that? It's like you've kind of.
How old were you?
This was in grade grade 7, I think. So
Grade 7, so you're what, 12, 13, something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
Okay.
So, without really knowing what all entrepreneurship was about, like I definitely think there was some, trading instincts. Not saying that this is any different from like trading hockey cards or anything like this, but like I just thought that was kind of an interesting outcome. I do remember thinking, uh, you know, how can I apply this to other things? And certainly, trying to engage in different entrepreneurial activities, over the years, not limited to like lemonade stands or uh, paper routes, but also like larger scale projects. So I can think of one or two of them.
Yep.
One uh, in grade 11, uh, the summer between grade 11 and grade 12, there was like an advertised government contract for local government to run a recycling summer recycling project for the community that I was in, and it was almost like a $40,000-$50,000 government tender, and through my involvement through that Boy Scout organization, like I did have some knowledge around that, and so what had
Knowledge of recycling.
yes, like where we had done. I had a badge for conservation
Recycling
projects.
badge.
so like,
So you're qualified to run a $40,000 or $50,000 project?
look, this was the early '90s, and I know everyone has these blue bins now, but believe it or not, those systems kind of came online mid to late '90s, and so this was pre the era of big recycling. And
But
um,
but Larry, did you have like any role models or like somebody within the Boy Scouts, your family? Like, I mean, no kid like just goes and like wins a bid for $40,000-$50,000. That's unusual, right? So how did that come about?
well, it's my mom. So my mom is a piano teacher, okay, and everything I learned about marketing I learned from my mom. So she's like, this is how I get students. Like we bought a house that was like 4 houses away from a school. Like I was always wondering, like why are we always living next to a school? Like, this is like business development, okay? It's like so that they can
Love it.
walk. They can walk from the school to the lesson without requiring any rides or any transportation or anything else. And I learned about marketing, how like she would put bulletins in the church bulletins or on the school bulletins for getting students. And one of the lessons she taught me early on was like, she wanted to be the highest cost piano teacher in the neighborhood, not the lowest cost. Like, I mean, just to give you an idea, like I think she was charging something like $10 or something. It was for half an hour, which was an enormous amount, back in the early '90s. And now you could probably get lessons for like $5 or $6 at the time. And she's
Right.
like, no, like you're gonna just get worse students. It was the like who
The logic.
who aren't committed, and the parents are just like more difficult. Like it's just like I just learned so much about human behavior and marketing just through this little you know the power of observation of my mom was running this business. And the other thing was like my dad was a salary man, okay, and I just noticed that my mom was making like 3-4 times more than him,
Wow.
and it wasn't
So hold on. She was making 3-4x your dad, who had a salaried job. Was it a white collar job that your dad had?
uh it was like a government
Government
salary,
job?
like a provincial
And
government salary, but not through salary alone. Like she walked me through like how, like, okay, well, the entire basement was her piano studio, okay, so it's like this whole house is a gigantic write-off. Like so basically Canada is like it's land of the middle class. Like everyone is highly taxed, and so the difference, like how you got to that multiple like 3 or 4 times was not just by earning more, but also by you know netting more of what you're keeping. And so, when you learn that stuff, grade 4, 5, 6, it's kind of informative. You do think of that. So that's how you tender, government contracts at grade 11 and win them. How would you win them? Well, you kind of apply using an umbrella of like the scouting group. You see, so now it's not just some grade 11-year. There's some legitimacy to this. Okay. And then it was like labor subsidies. So like they were looking to, use the money to then employ kind of, youth in the neighborhoods to do this work at like, I think the minimum wage at the time was like $4 an hour or something like that. And so like I pitched it as like, and we have this great supply of labor of people who are interested in these types of things.
Which was the Boy Scouts that you were friendly with?
Okay. Yeah. And there were all these merchandising opportunities. So like we had to like deliver flyers, to just popularize the thing. And so we had like various vendors kind of attach their logos to the the actual bins that we created and the flyers. So there was like, ad sponsored model. Like I didn't even really know what I was doing, but that was what that was. And there was like another revenue stream where you would sell the aluminum and items that you collect. I mean, we were bringing in like several 100 pounds of this stuff, per day. So, so that was a significant revenue stream. Also, like, there were like, if a beer can made it into there, it was like, oh, well, you just separate those. Those are actually worth 10 cents,
right.
And people would drop off. It's quite a few of them. And then there was, but then the whole idea here was that the labor was subsidized. So this was just like, quite a lucrative little business. And I was hooked. Like, this is like, holy moly, like you can just kind of be an intermediary between, these sources of labor and sources of kind of business needs, that kind of stuff. And
so you got this $40,000-$50,000 contract. I assume a lot of that you had actual costs. I assume you had to pay your Boy Scout buddies.
Yes. Yes. Like I think I employed like 11 or 12 of them. So
that's amazing.
And so how much money did you end up netting on that job when you're in 11th grade?
It was like, it was over 5 figures. And that was enough for me to actually pay my way through, college. So like in Canada at the time,
wow,
an engineering degree at the University of Waterloo, like tuition was only around $2,000 a month. Sorry, $2,000 a semester. Sorry, an entire semester.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's like around $5,000 in tuition and books for a year, and then an equal amount for housing and food and stuff like this. And so it was enough to pay for the first year. Seriously, no contributions from anyone,
from parents or anybody else. That's amazing.
And then
I'm going to tell my kids that they're going to start heading to college in the next few years.
Same as the state of things now, right?
Not quite. But then
you better be able to pay your way.
But then from there, it's easy. Like Waterloo had like a co-op program. They were paying like, $15 an hour. So like you'd easily make, 10, 15K a semester.
So you worked all through college?
It was like an alternating semester on, semester off. Like that. It's designed that way. It's like a co-op program. Like, so it's the program lasted almost 4.5 years. But you would have a full 2 years of working in different industry settings.
I love that. What was the work for that co-op program?
I studied electrical engineering. So like initially I was doing kind of like, electrical things like the one that I kind of remember the most was at the powerhouse of a kind of a Essex engine plant in Windsor, Ontario. So they were like melting, aluminum engine casts, and that required a lot of power to power those foundries. And I was, basically like Homer Simpson, taking measurements and looking at temperatures and forecasting load and all this stuff. So I just remember thinking like, oh, this is such a difficult job. Like it's like there's soot everywhere, and it was just like you're marching outside in the rain, like inspecting power lines, and it was just like so. I mean, there's nothing wrong with blue collar. Like people do that. You have to have people who do that. But it was difficult. And so the next semester, I took a job in Silicon Valley. This was in the 90s when Pets.com was $1 billion business. Like it just got me thinking like, holy moly, software is just, this is so interesting. Like, what am I doing in power? Power generation. So I switched all my third year, fourth year electives to being like software projects. Go ahead.
And so how did you get that job in Silicon Valley? Where was it?
It was at Cypress Semiconductor. So, electrical engineering is still like, you could still do hardware, like firmware. It's like, FPGAs or CPLDs. So it's like just a programming language for digital systems. And I had a tech support job at something called Cypress Semiconductor. They do, I'm not sure what they do right now, but at the time they were doing programmable chips, which is, important for application specific circuit design and all this stuff. And so, the job wasn't necessarily relevant to what I was doing. I mean, it's just a programming job, but just experiencing, Silicon Valley in the late 90s was just quite informative. And it's like, oh God, I have to graduate quickly, do something, dumb, while this thing is still going. Unfortunately, I graduated in 2000, which was just, past peak. And
just missed the time. Yeah, same by the way.
but
I graduated just early enough to that we could raise some capital, and then things really fell off a cliff for the company that I joined.
That guy Chamath, like he was actually just an example of the All In podcast guy,
Palihapitiya.
Yeah. Just to give you an idea of how crazy like timing matters, like he was just a year ahead of me. So he was like in my class, like the class of 99, and I was in the same, electrical and computer engineering class, like, 2000. And just like that 1 year, oh my God, what a difference does it make? So kind of a bummer.
So that 1 year is still haunting you, huh?
Well, it just, you can really drive you don't realize it, but you can kind of crash your car into a gold mine and not really realize like how much of this was luck versus like everyone wants to believe that it's like, I'm so great and this is why this happened. But I think it's much more complex than that. It's a confluence of various factors, so timing is one of them.
All right. So timing, you're saying is bad when you graduate. It's 2000. So then what did you do?
My senior self-directed project was on Java server programming. So up into that, late 90s, like Java was just like this ridiculous, like Sun Microsystem was trying to kill Microsoft, like by creating, desktop apps that would run on Unix and on Windows. And it's hard to believe like that was like the state of computing at the time. And so the first generation of Java apps were all, virtual machine running locally on desktop computers. And then, in the late 90s, someone came up with the ideas like, no, you should actually run this on the server side. Okay. And I was just so enamored with this idea that I just, I said, like, this is going to be my fourth year project. We're going to, build some e-commerce functionality into using a basic Java server engine. I think I was using something called Tomcat, which was it was a server for the Apache. It was like a plugin for the Apache web server, and there was one commercial implementation of a Java server at the time. It was called JRun, which was acquired by Allaire, which is here in the Boston area. Jeremy Allaire and his team, I just out on a whim kind of sent over my senior project to them and said, and I got it to run on their implementation of which wasn't hard. Like, you could generally port applications from one server to another. That was the whole selling problem, or one of them. So proving that could be done, and I made a bunch of analysis of why this is so much superior than using JavaScript or other proprietary scripting languages, and they just loved it, and they made me the product manager for the first Java server commercial thing, and I think it was very transformative. Like, this was a new idea. Before that, they were doing all sorts of stupid things like client server stuff, and it was really great to be at that intersection. I think the thing that I learned the most from the folks at Allaire was just I just could not fathom how enormous the mid-market was. They were making their hundreds of millions by selling these $5,000 annual licenses, which didn't seem like a lot of money to me, but they would just sell so many of these licenses, and it was on a per CPU basis, so if you have a quad core Intel CPU, it could be 20K a year or something like this. And I just remember, holy moly, this, there are so many companies out there, and this is such a big market. Yeah.
All right. So earlier you said something which was interesting. You said you got enamored with this Java server thing. When you say you got enamored with it, is it you were obsessed, coding all night? You couldn't put it down. What does it mean? How focused and were you, as a student, and how much of your time was just, I could not put this down?
Well, it was absolutely that, because you have to understand at the time, this is University of Waterloo. It's like a physics boot camp in the middle of nowhere in Canada. It's like a bunch of farms, and then there's this physics boot camp, and you got to understand, there is no SAT in Canada, okay? But the University of Waterloo runs these mathematics and physics and chemistry national-wide competitions, okay? And then they scholarship the people who who do really well in those national competitions. So it's there's
Is that how you got in?
Yes. It was mathematics.
Of course.
So these nerds, they just nerd out in the computer labs. They were a thing. I don't know if their labs are anymore, but they used to, no one had a notebook, so you would go to a lab, and the big discussion was people were writing Windows programs using MFC and all these C++ libraries, native Windows libraries, and then another camp was saying no freaking way, we're jumping on the Sun Microsystems virtual machine, look at this desktop app I made it, and I can compile it to bytecode, which can then run on Sun Microsystems Unix systems, which our labs were, and then also run it on a Windows machine. And I was looking at these things, and it's so crappy. It just wasn't crisp. These Java apps, they were clunky, and it just didn't feel great. And this was back when we thought Microsoft was going to rule the world, and we couldn't see a world where Microsoft wasn't going to just take every great desktop software idea and integrate it into their Office or operating system. And so this other thing came out, and it's like, holy moly, like it just really changed the whole paradigm. I mean, in hindsight, having had that observation, like I I'm kind of kicking myself, right? Because you could have applied that understanding to a lot of different areas, right? and I ended up like just being in the infrastructure space, or like like the server that powers that kind of leap forward. What I should have been thinking is like, okay, well, that's interesting that there's this infrastructure, but what applications should you be transforming from desktop experiences to server experiences like Amazon, or like you see what I'm saying, like that part didn't occur to me. I just knew there was something really really enormous there, and that's kind of why I said I was very enamored with it. It was something you just couldn't step away from. So if you Google me and the word like Java, like there's actually like books on like data access patterns and like Java programming like from like the late 90s and early 2000s that I authored. Okay, like that's how obsessed I was, about this stuff. Okay.
It's amazing.
So yeah, you just used the word obsessed. I mean, we've known you for a while, Larry. And I hope you wouldn't mind me saying, I think you have an obsessed, you have a personality that lends itself to getting obsessed with things. Is that a fair statement?
Until you get obsessed with something else, sure. It's like, but or like shiny object syndrome, like sure, like that's. I mean, that's.
Well, I didn't mean it that way. I didn't mean it that it was shiny object syndrome. I meant that I think you really, when you get interested in something, you really like to go deep on it, and you spend a lot of time on it. We get text messages from you late at night, talking about whatever. Is that normal for you?
Well, isn't it normal for everyone? like if you're into something, I just think my interests are more eclectic than. I think what you're describing is perfectly normal for like all human behavior, whether it's you're into Taylor Swift or whatever. I would characterize it as just that the things that I get into are are very obscure. The things that really like rock my world are like algorithms, like just marketing algorithms, and so that's kind of understanding how marketing systems work, is the thing that really gets me excited. So it's I think that's the unusual. It's less about being obsessed about things and more about just being obsessed about unusual things.
Okay, so you're now talking about marketing. I Max and I also have a background in marketing. We're both originally engineers. I think there's a lot more engineering mentality going into go to market these days. I think that's a trend. Can you maybe talk a little bit about how you translated that engineering prowess into getting into marketing? What was it for you that clicked?
It occurred to me just that these marketing systems that came online in the early 2000s, such as Google organic and paid search, these were systems that kind of traditional marketers were trying to understand and develop businesses around, like to support their businesses. And if you could approach it from a more of an algorithmic perspective rather than just a pure aesthetics, like making it look good kind of perspective, that you could run circles around people who didn't deeply understand those like how pages were scored and ranked, or how ads were priced, or how they were ranked, and that this kind of.
Wait, there's still like a missing link here. Like so you're talking already about like ranking and this search, but where were you when you heard that, this Google thing was like important and you could actually like pay to run an ad? Like this is still like pretty early when you hopped into this, right?
Sure. So early 2000s, I just held various kind of miscellaneous jobs and in the software space, like ranging from software development to product management to product marketing, and early like 2000, when Google's ad system went online, I was working with a kind of a local software company in the area, and they were just selling desktop software. It was like XML editing software, and they were executing around all the normal ad channels like banner ads or trade shows or print magazines, and then suddenly um, you know they we started placing ads on Google. It was actually the largest ad order for all of Google in 2000,
Wow.
in the year 2000, and in 2001 it was approximately $1 million. Now Google won't even call you back if you order $1 million in ads.
Talk about the right place at the right time.
But I mean, but how did you? But Larry, how did you go from being an engineer at Allaire to working at this agency?
Just
Doesn't seem like a natural progression to me. Did you get fired? Like, what happened?
So I think it was like how you never meet your heroes and stuff like this. It's like I think I just had such a like a un just an unrealistic view of how great things would be at a product organization. I now know, like 20 years later, that any B2B company software is plagued with issues, and that the reality of the situation is nowhere near what is being advertised. But I think being young and having had a significantly unrealistic expectation, that I was frustrated. I just thought, like, wait a minute, like, why are we doing things these ways? This is crazy. A little too self-righteous, a little too too much hubris, perhaps. And it just got me thinking, like, I really ought to be doing this kind of stuff, more on my own, like in a more of a entrepreneur modality. Initially, not really understanding what the opportunity was, but rather just knowing that I need to develop other skill sets, and at some future point in time that the opportunity would reveal itself in time.
That's super interesting. There's a thread there that I think, I hadn't really thought of, but I mean, I saw it in myself early on, this, I wouldn't say unrealistic. I would have described it more or less idealistic. I thought everything was going to be perfect. These companies are going to be run like these amazing machines. And my first job, my second job, I interned at Amazon. And even there, like everything was just like, it's a disaster, like how do they run these companies this way? Like there's going to be a better way. So yeah, it's interesting to see that, there's some of that in just being, I'm not okay with the status quo. I think I can go and try it for myself and do a better job.
It was like, I was in the new part of the business, like this Java server piece that they just acquired. It wasn't developed by Allaire. It was bought for like 27 million or something like that. Around the time that I applied, they had just acquired it. Like, so, what I didn't realize was they had this legacy business called Cold Fusion, and it was just like a total clusterfuck. like they were, trying to, like, servers clusters running Cold Fusion were just dying. Like we basically killed, what was it, eToys and Toys R Us. Like we just couldn't handle the loads, like for holiday shopping, and I was just like so disillusioned, like of like, what's the roadmap here, and like this doesn't seem like a in hindsight, like, of course, businesses, do have these challenges. In fact, these are high class problems.
Yep.
But
How big was the company then? I mean, was it like a real startup, 20 people, or was it like much larger?
this was a publicly traded company on the Nasdaq.
They were really big.
It had a plus $2 billion valuation. So it was,
Of course they did. It's the 90s.
and by then it was like you had such high head count that it was like just wasn't the most. But you know how it is. Like the more these companies grow, kind of these intermediate layers get added, and that becomes sort of like the inertia that kind of propagates the status quo. And so it was a couple experiences. Just I didn't realize it at the time, but it was a truly fantastic experience to have a taste for like what the reality of B2B startups really is like, and how challenging it is to scale those things. But I think I was just a little naive, at the time, and I feel
early e-commerce infrastructure behemoth.
Pretty bad about that, actually. Yeah. What was that?
Yeah. I was saying early, infrastructure for e-commerce. You were inside of the behemoth at the time, right? Like this is like the place to be.
Yeah, and then pivoting to like just trying to work on other non-engineering skills like product management, product marketing.
So you ended up at this agency because you're trying to pursue broadening your skills and trying to sort of push in that entrepreneurial direction. Is that accurate?
What I told myself was, I want to create a business. Like I kind of solemnly declared to myself, like, we're going to build something. I just didn't know what it was. Like I just didn't have any, great ideas. And so in the meantime, and there was another issue that I was like not. I was like on a short-term visa situation. Like I was like,
right. You were in Boston at this point, right?
Yeah, and so like, in order to start your own business, like you do have to have you have to have status in the company in the country here, United States of America. So like a green card or something like this. And so like I didn't have that. So recognizing that it would be at least a few more years, somewhere like with some companies, I kind of made it's almost like, some countries have like mandatory military service, and they kind of plan their careers around like, when am I going to do my 3-year stint in the Korean Army or something like this. I kind of thought it through that way, and tried to find a company that would sponsor this and pick up some skills along the way. So. And then as soon as I got that piece of paper, I incorporated. Yeah. Yeah.
Really? Is that what happened? So you got a green card and then you said, all right, I'm starting my company?
Well, like within 6 months. Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty good. All right. But so we interrupted a good part of the story here. So you're placing literally the largest orders with Google in the early 2000s?
Oh my God. So like, I actually got to meet Sergey, Brin. I got to meet,
What? You did?
That guy Eric Schmidt. Like I had lunch with Eric Schmidt.
That guy, yeah.
Like, and it was just like him and me at the Google cafeteria in Mountain View for like an hour, and he was just asking me about Java servers and stuff like this, and like, oh my God, this is the like future billionaire Eric Schmidt. Like they, it was they hadn't gone public, and it wasn't like. It was just this thing. I think.
Did you know you were being interviewed? Did you fail that interview? What happened?
It's funny. I did interview for a job there in like 2004, 2005 for like a junior QA job, and I did not get that job. It was. I still remember I remember the question. It was like. They were doing graph theory, and it was like they wanted to. The question was, given a graph, figure out, which, an algorithm determine if two nodes share a common ancestor. It's ridiculously easy in hindsight. Like it's just a recursive thing, and I just screwed it up. I was nervous or something like this. and I just wonder, like, if you could have been like the first 400 people, like even just a low QA engineer job, you'd probably make 50 million or something like that. Last I checked, unless you unless you sell along the way, which it would be kind of hard to
Which probably would have happened.
hold
At
on
least
to
some of
stock
it.
for 20 years, but whatever. But that that's the other way you can make tons of money. It's just like, I think we kind of knew that Facebook was going to be a thing. We kind of knew that Google was going to be a thing. Like, it's kind of obvious if you could, just join those operations when they're like a couple hundred people. It's still another path to.
Would you have been happy if you had done that?
It would have been a different.
Would you have been able to? Would you have been able to do that? I don't know. Like,
so by then in my career, I think I had a better self-awareness of my kind of impatientness and stuff like this, and I think probably I can keep that in check with the understanding that this is being part of something enormous, as opposed to just like a where is this going kind of job. So yes.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Some of those were obvious at the time. Facebook was going to be big, Google was going to be big. Which are the ones that are obvious now for our audience, so they can go join those companies if they're not the entrepreneurs that
besides Customers.ai?
Well, I mean, come on, like, everyone knew OpenAI was going to be a thing, like at least 24 months ago. Like, if you've tried any of that stuff, so that's kind of, as you say, that horse has left the barn. But that it's another example of the like if you just try it for like 10 seconds, you kind of see it. And there's people like doing like junior marketing jobs there, like and say junior sales jobs there, right? And they get the same stock as everyone else. It's just probably not as much as the AI engineers that are being like.
But it's capped, right? Isn't the upside at OpenAI capped on the equity?
I don't know what they're.
I think it is. I'm sure they're still going to do fine, but I think it is capped.
Yeah. But if that's not your thing, the problem is you have to kind of a mercenary, like you have to go from place to place to place. Like, I know a guy who his whole career has been just being a mercenary, going into these those types of companies,
Google,
like
Facebook, Amazon.
Pretty much, yes. Facebook, yeah. The other way, of course, is just build something a bit smaller that's still interesting and own a larger percentage of that, and you can also do.
Sounds like much more fun.
It's much more work, also, but also more fun. Yeah.
All right. So you got your green card. What were the other conditions that precipitated starting? So was it called WordStream at that point, or was it something else?
Yeah, it's just like Larry LLC. It was just like a kind of a placeholder, and it was started out doing kind of just search engine marketing and organic and paid placement of ads, because I had experience with that, and that was the kind of the inaugural business model, which was just a services model, which normally from a VC perspective isn't that interesting, but from a 25-year-old perspective, like if you can be signing up customers for $10,000, $20,000 a month and have 6, 10 of those customers, like that's an enormous amount of wealth for an individual. After like 2 years of just screwing around, basically,
So you were, when you started the company, you were making pretty serious money for a 20-year-old.
That was like what I said earlier,
more or less the beginning.
That was just like emulating my mom's kind of like just create a services business and write off everything, kind of like even everything is a business expense kind of thing, and that was fine. Got houses and cars and got married. God, that was very expensive.
What year was this, by the way, that you started the company?
I call it 2006, something like that. Yeah.
2006. What? Wait, hold on.
and
I'm
then
a car guy. What kind of cars did you get?
just like infinities and all these stuff, but um, it doesn't. I don't know if that matters, but the point is, like, you could buy one, a month kind of thing. Like you could with a free cash flow, you could pay for one of those in a month,
Wow.
And that was kind of attractive. And then it got to a point where I kind of
They
had
didn't
to.
fit the garage.
Well, I had to think about, like, how could I make this into something bigger than just this kind of cash cow. And
Yeah.
so then the idea was just like, well, I wrote some software to automate some of the campaign management tasks. Why don't I just, like, put a front end in front of the campaign management tools that I've kind of internally created for internal use purposes, and try to resell that to the masses, just like what Allaire was doing, selling these JRun servers to tens of thousands of mid-market companies for 10, 20, 50,000 a year kind of thing. And that was the idea. I pitched a bunch of VCs. It was laughable. No connections, no intro. It's just like emailing the inboxes.
Cold info at vc.com.
And here's a PowerPoint. Call me back. I think I pitched about 200 places. Got maybe 30 meetings. So that was informative. You don't know what you don't know. So you just try it out, see what happens, and you learn. And, they all said no, but a few of them said, like, no, because, and it kind of clued me into, like, what the expectations are for, raising money. And that was informative. Keep in mind, this was like 2007, 2008. Today, there's, like, substantially more resources online for, founders,
Right.
who want a roadmap.
Yeah, at that time it was kind of a black hole. You didn't know how the system worked. Nobody was talking about it. There were no podcasts on it.
No SaaS or nothing like that. And, like, otherwise I would have read those. And just taking the rejection letters and just printing them out, and then kind of operationalizing the objections, if that made sense. Like, just, well, you need a team. You can't just be one person. Duh. Well, that was
how hard was that rejection period? Because, I mean, 200 people, I don't know, a sixth of them reach back, and out of those, a lot of no's, a lot of maybe useful feedback, but still, like, because I remember going through those same conversations early on, and it's like, I got a bunch of people cheering from the sidelines, but that's not going to help my business.
Yeah.
So how were you feeling then?
Cheering from the sidelines, that's my favorite one. Go cheer for somebody else. I don't need you cheering for me from the sidelines.
Surprising. I don't know if this is surprising or not, but it's surprisingly motivational. Like, I have a huge chip on my shoulder when people say there's something can't be done, something is stupid, and it just was fuel to the fire to try to figure out a way. I have this theory that it's my high school coach yelled at me once. Like, this was like 94 or something. It's like quite a while ago, and I still remember it. He said, "God damn it, Larry, you think that the rules don't apply to you, and you never." Like, I would
exactly. He called it like it was.
he just
nailed it.
Mr. Stevenson, my gym coach, and he just yelled it in like anger at me, and I was like, like, what the hell? Like, why am I that way? Like, I try to litigate everything. That's crazy. Like, just if people are saying, like, this can't be done, and some of them are even suggesting like a path forward, then that's like, it's not the worst thing in the world. Because keep in mind, I had revenue. Like, there are situations where you're like, you have this burn and you have to cover this nut, and and the no's are like, oh God, like, it's do or die kind of thing. Keep in mind, I had all this cash and I was just, like, using it in a pretty stupid way, like not a just dividending it out to the to the shareholder one shareholder, like
Instead of hiring it. So you were just one person. So you weren't hiring anybody. You're just like, yep, more cash. I'm just going to use it.
yeah, like 7 or 8 customers you can manage, and then and it was like that was my max, and I couldn't take any more clients, and even if I had referral business, like I just couldn't take it on, and it
Just
wasn't
turn
the
them away.
it wasn't the smartest. You know, I mean, if I was smarter, I wish I
Well,
could have told myself to kind of operationalize something sooner. But like the problem is if you're not uncomfortable, like that uncomfortableness is a huge motivator for like making systematic changes. And I was just too comfortable, unfortunately, for that first couple of years in running a services industry. And I think if I talk to like agency owners, like I feel like they're all kind of hung up, on their on their little. There's nothing wrong with being an agency anymore, nothing at all. But they do like to tell themselves that they don't want to be a bigger agency. Like they tell themselves all these like limiting thoughts. And
yeah.
I think I was victim to that too. And then I started thinking, well, like if I can expand to this point, like why would I stop here? Like what makes this point any better a stopping point than like a 10-person company or a 20-person company? Like it really falls apart if you subject it to like any serious rigor, like thoughts. But yeah, I'm kind of ashamed. I spent 2 years just doing dumb services business. Well, meanwhile, like this is like 2006, 2007, 2008, like Dharmesh and Brian are like,
Starting
creating HubSpot and all this stuff. And like, geez, I'm just wasting my time here. So oops.
It's super interesting that you bring this up because something that Adam and I talk about a lot is this idea of like systems and how they sort of constrain things. We actually we're in the matching engineers with opportunities, but in the end we see a lot of like outsourcing firms. As when we got started, we talked to a bunch of them, and many of them basically start and they all stagnate or kind of stabilize at a certain point. Like nobody grows past 25, 30. And there's a few outliers, but most of them kind of stay within that realm. And I think the same probably happens with marketing agencies, with like all of these small businesses where like the constraints of the system, like the one person running the show who, like you said, has these limiting thoughts of I cannot go beyond because that's my capacity, right?
And they kind of delude themselves into thinking that that's by design,
By choice.
like, by choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the opposite, by design, not by choice.
Or yeah, by choice. Sorry. That because I don't want to be a big recruiting firm. Like I don't. Like, right?
I don't want to run a large operation. Yeah, of course you do.
But so you, at the same time, Larry, you had sort of going back to what you said about your mom. You'd copied her model and achieved pretty good success with it, right? Like you're buying a car a month. I mean, on some level, many people would have been happy just riding that wave as long as they could have. So I'm curious sort of what pushed you to say, no, I want to actually go get 200 rejections from VCs and then keep going?
Well, we talked about it a little earlier. I already committed to myself, my younger self, that we are going to build the company. I just didn't know what it was. And, it, I dabbled in some e-commerce ideas. Those didn't go to fruition, unfortunately. I think the infrastructure for e-commerce just wasn't, far enough along at the time.
It was super early.
I didn't have the staying power. So, I had the power to wield enormous amounts of organic and paid searches to specific URLs. Okay, that's the power that I had, and I couldn't think of I was trying to figure out like how to best monetize that, and originally it was just services like be the like infrastructure, but then seeing the software opportunity just in front of my nose because I was, it was. It took too long considering that I had previously committed to to doing
to making a bigger business.
yeah. Or alternatively, I could have been more creative and think of all these other. It's applications is where like these broader. I mean, if you're gonna, that's one learning. That's like if you're gonna. There's nothing wrong with it. Like this was like almost a $200 million exit. Like so, I might assume like I'm beating myself up over this thing, but like, it's like that's
It was
like
okay.
that's,
Yeah, it was not bad. It wasn't not horrible.
I guess yeah, it's a bit of
Talk about the WordStream exit ultimately. Yeah.
But like, it's the same amount of work, so might as well go after a kind of an enormous opportunity is kind of my thinking, and then that's kind of thinking with my new business too. So
okay, so how did you go? How obviously you did ultimately raise capital. So you went back to the drawing board. You got a bunch of no's. You went back to the drawing board. You started to build out a team, I guess, is where you were going with that. How did you? What actually kicked off the business in your mind? What WordStream eventually became?
So, I was saying like I had referral business that I was turning away, and so I kind of contacted them back and said like, I have this software product. It's we could offer it cheap for substantially less than the services charges, and so like there was an easy way to get the first 5 or 6 customers on the software. Because of the referral stream, I had revenues, and so instead of just enriching myself personally, we put the money back into the business. I hired a marketer, 3 engineers, and
It's probably the hardest job in the world, being a marketer under Larry.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd want that job.
The people
No pressure.
People who've worked for me have gotten to do like such remarkable things. They're executives at like major companies and or business owners of themselves, and I'm just I'm even more proud of that than any single accomplishment that I've done in my profession career.
You should be. That's awesome.
They're just amazed what people end up doing. And then like the guy who was my first marketer he was literally like a bartender before, with kind of a philosophy degree, and now he's running like a hugely successful internet marketing agency of his own. It's Measured SEM. If you want to check him out, I highly recommend them. But yeah, we started executing against stupid, obvious things like having a team, having a product, having customers, having like product revenue and not just services revenue, being more defensible, et cetera, et cetera. And it was pretty easy to reply to the rejection letters, 6 or 12 months later and say like, hey, remember this rejection letter that you sent me? Thank you for being so prescriptive. Here's an update on where we stand on these items. That surprised a lot of them because usually when a VC says no, they don't expect you to do the things that they're hoping for you to do. And I think that helped me because as a young man, like it kind of showed them that I had a certain tenacity to execute against, objectives. Of the 7 who kind of gave me these detailed rejection letters, half of them took a meeting, 4 of them, and 2 of them ended up offering term sheets, and so that was how that happened. So,
and so that must have been awesome. What was the amount that you raised in that first round?
About $4 million.
$4 million, yeah, and
this is an enormous amount. I just remember, like this is like 2008, and I just remember
it's a lot of money.
Reading through a term sheet showing it to my then wife. We just got married in like June of 2008, and I got the term sheet like a month later, and I just remember thinking like I thought we made it, like we made it.
Yeah.
Like it's really just getting on base, like in terms of the journey. But I thought we had made it initially, just by getting the fundraising, which is completely wrong. But was
Yeah, no, but we all do it, right? That's when you're super proud to put out on LinkedIn, hey, we just raised $4 million. You think like, all right, like you just said, I made it. And in reality, that's that's you're just getting started. But also, it's interesting that you decided not to bootstrap, because given how much cash you were bringing in, I would have imagined you easily could have had a path to bootstrapping. Did you ever think about going down that path, or did you just know, all right, I want this to be big, VC is the way to go? Or was the VC validation, like you're just talking about, and you wanted that validation of your idea?
Certainly, VC validation is a big part of the Silicon Valley ethos and the methodology, mythology, and I just think the one thing that was so I did bootstrap. Like I did have
Yes,
employees,
you bootstrapped obviously until that point. Yes, sorry, didn't mean to discount that. Yeah.
uh, which was over a year, and uh, the thing that was kind of weighing on me from a business perspective was that there were other companies in the space that were pursuing other similar ideas. There was a company called Brin Software. There was a company called Kenshu. Um, Another
Sure.
one called Click Equations. Another called Clickable. Like I mean, it's kind of crazy. Like this whole kind of micro niche of like pay-per-click advertising systems was like quite a competitive little ecosystem of venture activity. Like people wanted to, it wasn't the hardest thing to enter, and there was so much momentum around that marketing channel,
Yep.
that
Yep.
that I did feel a little bit stressed out, and as a first-time founder, and thinking that I really need to, get a Series A investment, and try to compete with some of these bigger names, which had gotten started during my year of kind of self-indulgence, kind of, so like I felt a little behind at that point. So we ended up kicking our asses, and like those companies did not make a dollar for their investors or for their employees, and we crushed them all. So there was
That's awesome. All right. So now you were obviously originally the CEO. You did not end up being the CEO. Was it during that round, or was it a later round when you stepped down as CEO?
uh, yeah. So Sigma Partners, led my Series A, and um, I had kind of understood from talking to my some friend who knew a little bit more about the venture raising process. That they had this modality there where you could bring in an idea, and like from like a technologist perspective, or individual expert, and then they would kind of pair that entrepreneur with like someone within their network, so like a seasoned operator, which seemed reasonable to me. Like this was a first venture, and there's a lot involved with business operations, that just managing to objectives, managing your team. There's just an enormous amount of operational skills that are required, and I thought that was reasonable. I was like 28 years old or something like that, so like
Yep.
it wasn't like a situation where like it's Facebook, and you have this product that's like it's almost unstoppable. It's you just like there certainly was a good amount of work to do here, and so knowing that my lack of operational experience was going to be a serious sticking point for any VC investment, I just took it off the table, and um, I just suggested as like in the pitch deck as like let's do one of these like team ups where you can bring
Oh,
in
wow.
one of your operating partners, and I'll work work as like a VP, in product or marketing and or
So,
marketing.
so, so you proactively put that in the pitch deck. You were pushing for it.
So this is like a journey of self-discovery here. Like,
Yeah.
by this time, like you have the ability to recognize that if I pitch the company and say like, F you, I'm not open to like any other, arrangement, that they're certainly not going to, be excited about proposing that.
Right.
Something. So like,
Yeah.
you have to.
You're just preempting it.
But was there some imposter syndrome in it, Larry? Or I mean, you said self-discovery. So do you think like why, right? Like you had this big idea, you wanted to, the chip on your shoulder, you sat with Eric Schmidt and you're going to, I'm going to reverse engineer your system and I'm going to be like the largest broker of AdWords in the world. Like, why bring somebody to run it? I mean, it was your baby.
It's hard to, well, first, I'm aware of what imposter syndrome is. I don't believe I suffer from that. Like, I mean, I think maybe even despite kind of a humble appearance, like I might suffer from the opposite, like, like derangement syndrome or something like, but in terms of the, I think your question is like, can you clarify the question though?
Yeah, I mean, you had this kind of breakthrough. You wanted to build a big company. You had promised to your younger self that you were going to go do it. You had a chip on your shoulder where you really wanted to kind of show the world that you were able to build this massive, massive enterprise. And yet in your pitch deck, you're kind of like sabotaging you running the show, right? By putting this forward. Or was it like, I needed to put this there to get the money?
Yeah, I think it was the latter. There's a certain pragmatism that you have to have. You compromise where you can, and and do what you can do to get a deal done. Like, it's in hindsight, it's still quite remarkable that that deal got done like a month before the financial crisis started in October of 2008, and like this was a like it just call it 5-6 person company, with.
I will say it's remarkable that, I mean, you touched on it lightly, but basically an outsider with no warm intros goes in, sends a bunch of cold emails, does a bunch of work, and then gets 2 term sheets and funded. Like, that's remarkable.
That's not the normal. Yeah, that's not the normal path.
So maybe it's like, these VCs, they want to believe that they have this, value add, and they do. Like this. I'm not saying this is a erroneous belief. Like they believe that they can add value to the equation by, adding the missing ingredient. And so maybe that was what kind of made it happen. If like it's impossible for me to know, but I think it's a compelling offer if you like they have these EIRs and they have all these like, conviction in their people, and so like, I mean, isn't that the biggest risk when you fund a company? It's like, the CEO's ability to operate, and so that's kind of like de-risking.
You know what I think? Can I give you my diagnosis? I think you're a master of reverse engineering, and not knowingly, you reverse engineer what they needed to fund you, which was, you wanted to get it done at all costs, right? Like, you're going to build this company, however it has to happen, whether it's me at the helm or not, it does not matter. I'm going to get this company funded. And you reverse engineered that they needed that. And that was the thing that was missing for you to actually get the outcome you wanted for yourself. Is that fair?
It was on the last slide of this of the pitch deck. Like you end with your ask. It's like, let's partner. I'll be the tech domain expert, and you bring the CEO, and we'll raise $4 million, and we'll capture this market. And so that was the weakest component of my what do they look for? Market, team, and and traction. So like it was, or the team, like the leadership component was the weakest component at the time. First time
Yeah.
founder.
Did
So
did you get to date, potential CEOs,
I
or
think
was there one sort of picked?
I met like a dozen of them.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, and then met with the the venture partner to kind of make a pecking order, and it was not that difficult a process. I have no complaints. Like it was
Yeah.
more or less what I expected it to be.
All right. So you raised the money, you got you brought in a CEO, you started building. Tell us about sort of the journey, the ups and downs of building WordStream.
Oh God, how long do we have here? It, it was just I think the early product market fit was a distortion. It was heavily influenced by referrals. It hadn't been battle tested to mass market, which because we didn't have the capital to pursue that. I think that I had built a product that was designed for myself and people like me, which in hindsight I realize is a much smaller minority. I thought that maybe like 1 in 10 marketers would understand how to do this. It turned out to be like more like 1 in 1,000, or like off by like an order of magnitude, basically, 1 or 2 orders of magnitude. So the issue was there was significant complexity in the product, um, and as evidenced by very very high churn. So like we're talking about like 6 to 10 month like average customer survival, so losing like 15%
Ouch.
over
Yeah.
month over month, and this was like before all the SaaS Bibles were created. There's nothing magical about SaaS in 2023, but we didn't know all these informative benchmarks and KPIs in 2008, and so it just was one of these situations where we went to market with the product we had, and it was kind of it was successful in that we were able to generate a significant number of sales. Like the units were high. It was just the retention was very very bad, and we diagnosed the problem with the help of some like outsider intervention. A guy named Blake Catelli at MIT, spent 2 months with me to kind of talk to the customers and do the whole go through an entire product exercise, and we had two choices. One was to kind of move up market like some of the other companies in our space, because that would have a higher, so keep the product the same and move up market, because that would have a more complex use cases, and you could sell 12 or even 24-month contracts into those types of accounts. The other idea was just like by that time, like our marketing was just so on fire. We were doing like hundreds of thousands of visitors a month, like just for my blogging and tweeting and all this stuff, and just SEO. And remember, like I'm pretty good at campaign execution, and so that part was just like a torrent of leads coming through. We just didn't have the perfect thing to sell them. That it was just
that was very much the story at HubSpot. Probably almost, I don't know, I'd have to think through the timing of the years, but very similar timing. The marketing was ahead of the product, basically, and that sounds like exactly the scenario you were in.
And then so the other idea was just to keep the market where it was, because we had these leads coming in and qualifying, but to dramatically simplify the product to be accessible and understandable and affordable to that kind of mid-market persona. And so we went back and forth on it a bit, but ultimately we just kept the same target market, which was mid-market, but developed kind of a second iteration of the product to more meet the needs of that persona, and that kind of changed the company from like a kind of $1 million business that where the terminal velocity of the revenues was like $1 million in ARR, because at some point the churn catches up to you and there's just no way to outrun that churn.
Yep.
The churn is still high, like, but we could build like a at exit it was a $55 million ARR kind of business. So it was we focused on this pay-per-click advertising use case for mid-market, and that was strong enough because of the pay-per-click market was like they had skin in the game. They were spending $5,000-$10,000 a month on the channel, so they were committed to this channel. It was the retention metrics were not as great as HubSpot, but nevertheless strong enough to build like a $50+ million business on. And that was one of the fundamental issues that we kind of overcame over time. There were other issues, like it's hard to narrow it down to one, but I think that was like the existential crisis that we faced. Early, call it 2010s. It's like 1 or 2 years into this, we realized that and had to make that pivot, like forking the code and saying like there's the old product and it's sailing away, and then here's the new product. It's a completely different user experience and stuff like this. And so, that was pretty dramatic, but we got through it, and
So Harry, you glossed over like your hundreds of thousands of visits a month. Like, yeah, it's nothing. But tell us a little bit more about that. I think we talked about your superpower being reverse engineering systems, and I know we've talked in the past about your unicorn kind of marketing power law. Can you tell us about reverse engineering some of the signals that you understood on SEO, SEM, and how you made that happen?
I mean, you can see it now if you look at the WordStream's website domain and like SEMrush or something. Like it has like 10 million links pointing to it from 200,000 linking domains, and so we were just really good at doing paid and organic search, and then collecting those emails and then nurturing them through email. It was just there's nothing remarkable about it. Well, that's not true. It was like a top 0.1% kind of SEO website.
What's remarkable about that?
Sort of by definition remarkable, but okay, yeah.
Millions of viewers a year.
The website today does something like 5 million visitors a month. Okay, from organic search. If you search for words like keywords or AdWords or link building, like the site shows up. In fact, if you use things like Siri or Google Home and you ask questions like, what is link building? Like it'll pull the definitions directly from our website. Like that's how authoritative like we made that thing. And it was just
incredible.
A strong understanding of how the Google algorithms worked from the day I launched that site in 2006, and just executing campaigns to drive like not just like 10 links. Like, I mean, people were doing things called link begging, which is where you like email people and say like, I'll link to you if you link to me. It's just not scalable. And we were doing just pure stunts and getting on TV and driving like news cycles, just around issues in the space of Facebook and Google ads. And just publishing data and just getting on CNN and New York Times and Wall Street Journal, and just there was a quotation like from I think it was Sergey Brin apparently said this at one point. Who the F is WordStream and how do they have our data? It's like
I love it.
So I was just extrapolating, of course, using the data that I have to figure out costs of clicks or click-through rates or conversion rates or size of industry. Like it was a black box, and we were able to really create a brand around the company that was kind of demystifying this stuff, and as a result, it was quite an authoritative website, and that's what like a once in a lifetime kind of go to market, because like if you try to create one of these websites in 2023, it's impossible. Like I can't. You have to pick a different go to market, because you're competing against companies like HubSpot or neilpatel.com or WordStream.com. Like if I'm trying to rank for like marketing words, and those have
That
the
ship
benefit
has
of,
sailed. Yeah.
yeah, they have the benefit of like 20 years of link building, and I just there's just no way
much advantage.
to close the gap at this point. So.
Yeah. So you built it up to 55 million in ARR, sold the business. So what were the stats, or is there more of the battle scars you wanted to go through first?
I mean, I have to acknowledge, my partner Ralph Foles, who was the operational muscle behind this whole operation. Like he taught me everything I know about, just business operations, like QBRs and managing to objectives and keeping the company on track and focused. But yes, together the team grew this to roughly $50 million and over $50 million in ARR. And the company was acquired in 2018 by Gannett, which is the parent company of USA Today.
Yep. And Gannett actually ended up merging with New Media, who was the acquirer of Thrive5. So we a little family here. So you sold. I mean, everybody did well, I guess. What was the total capital into WordStream that you guys had raised?
Like venture capital was
18 million.
Yeah, like think about like Klaviyo's IPO. Okay, so say it's like 7 billion or something like that. They raised 750 million or something. So like a 10x
right
to their capital raise. Like the thing that is
although they burned very little.
Oh really? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, it's like a 10x multiple on kind of what we raised, basically.
Yeah.
It was more than 150 million, actually. There was tens of millions of dollars in cash in on hand that gets flushed out to shareholders before a merger, or sorry, a takeover is consummated. And there was all these escrows and earnouts that were hit, so it was good chunk of change here. The execs made. I don't know if I can say this, but like they made okay, and and all employees had stock in the company, and it was a nice thing for them too, and I also owned a good amount of the company at exit, so overall incredible experience. Like just I think it's something like a 1 in a 5,000 or 1 in 3,000 kind of outcome. Like I read all these studies about like probability of getting through from seed to exit at 9 figures. It's very low. And so,
Sure.
I'm, it's a miracle, but remember it was expected. Like I don't, I look at those odds thinking like, but that's going to be us, like
that. Yeah, it doesn't apply to us. Like
exactly.
the losers, that doesn't apply to us. Yeah. Was your
Exactly.
mom excited?
I mean, it's kind of incomprehensible. Like yes, she's an entrepreneur, but like it was just a different operating at a different scale, and they don't really know what I do. It's like kind of a mystery. Like I don't really like to talk shop, around family. And in fact, my wife, she knows absolutely nothing what I do. It's like I pitched her twice, once for my WordStream Series A and once for my Customers.ai Series A, and she fell asleep both times. So I just, like we just don't talk about work. It's kind of kind of thing. Yeah. So
I was talking to David Cancel once, and he was saying that when he goes to dinner parties, people ask him what he does. He just says, "I'm in IT." Just leaves it at that, right? Like, oh, okay, all right. So we'll leave it there.
Yeah. I say something like that. Like I say I'm a small business owner or something like that. Something stupid like that.
Small business owner, right?
Yeah.
All right. So good exit. You know, probably could have gone to some tropical island and, you know, been sitting on a beach just sipping margaritas or whatever. But that's not what you decided to do. You decided to go, you know, back into the ring, right? And you started Mobile Monkey. Now it's called Customers.ai. What was your motivation this time around? Why? What is driving you currently? Why did you start that company? There are a million other things you could have done.
You know, I think, you know, it says what we're talking about earlier, like, you know, why does the agency owner, you know, scale to, you know, 50,000 ARR and stop there, you know, or, you know, but it's like, well, let's keep this going. Like, you know, the, you know, revenue generation on exit was certainly a valuable outcome, but another, you know, very valuable outcome was just like 10 years of startup operating experience
Yeah.
and then looking to monetize, you know, those experiences, because it's just the recognition that it's just so rare to have done that even once. You know, that, you know, it, you know, like people like Dharmesh and Brian, they're all serial entrepreneurs, and they, you know, they made their fortunes on their second time around. You know, like it's, um,
Right.
uh, it just, it didn't, you know, I'm like, how old was I? I was like, you know, 39 or something. It's like, it doesn't feel right to, you know, be, you know, kicking up your feet and sailing off into the island, somewhere like so early career. You know, that was definitely one issue. Another issue was just, that as amazing as WordStream was, and this was an incredible outcome, and I'm very proud of everyone that I worked with. I mean, the one kind of, you know, question mark in my head was like, you know, what would have happened to the company if we had been a little bit more, kind of risk, on, like more amenable to taking bigger bets with products specifically. Like if you think about all the
Yep.
product innovations in product marketing over the last, you know, decade, that there was a lot of stuff, and, you know, we were running a great business, but not necessarily through inventing new stuff. It was more around, you know, realizing stronger and stronger operational efficiencies. And so, you know, the engineer in me just wondered, like, you know, what if you could kind of combine, um, some, uh, you know, modest, you know, call it upper middle class operating capability with, you know, some more risk averse, no, not risk averse, risk on, you know, product decision making, and see, you know, what might come out of that recipe. You know, it's going well. The company is, it's about, call it, mid single $1 million ARR, and
Yep.
approximately up, about 100% year over year from, you know, comparing, say, September to September of this year to last year. So, you know,
That's awesome,
it's an
especially in
exciting
this
space.
environment.
Yeah, it's an exciting
Yeah.
space, you know, where we have all these crazy use cases. Um, I'm very excited about it.
And so, are you specifically focused on a financial outcome, or you want to, you know, I don't know. So, like, if I go back to what you were saying about how you study the odds, right? So you like to study the odds, and you know that okay, I only had a 1 in 3,000, 1 in 5,000 chance of being successful, but you sort of feel differently. How do you think about this business? Do you know internally when you come into work every day, okay, this will be successful, I will make it $1 billion company? Is that kind of your North Star, or is it something else?
At this point, like at this moment, I have extremely high conviction, like near, you know, as high as you can get. You know, in that this is a very interesting, kind of collection of use cases that we've uncovered with broad applicability, and that it is screaming um, like a very successful future. And I think it's gone to a situation where it's ours to lose. Meaning, like, I think that this is, early on, it's like you have even a business or an interesting product, and can you connect with a like a target market? As you solve those challenges, the kind of the balance of issues in a business become increasingly operationally focused. Like, so can you execute against the opportunity that's ahead of you now that it's been discovered and defined? And so we're just a Series A company, but it does feel like
it's yours to lose.
It's more of a, as I just need to not choke, basically. Like, that should be our motto: don't choke. So
core value for the company: don't choke.
like we don't have to invent a new use case or find another market. Like it's a strong enough use case with strong enough retention and a strong enough go to market. Of course, I wish everything was going faster, but I can see it, and I'm certain that this will become either a super valuable cash generating business, or like an acquisition target. Like, every single integration partner that we integrate with, like a Shopify or whatever, like we just make those platforms work significantly better. And I think that it's a very strategic piece of the puzzle that isn't really being solved by a lot of companies who could benefit from this kind of thing.
Do you want to just, for those who aren't familiar with what you're doing, maybe at least briefly explain what your focus is with Customers.ai?
Okay, sure. Thanks for this opportunity. You can check it out. It's Customers.ai.com. It's the thing that I'm trying to displace is actually ads, right? So the proprietary insight that I have here from working at WordStream for a decade is that the ROI of paid channels is pretty challenging in 2023. That when I started this that last business in 2008, cost per clicks were like 5-10 cents a click, and now it's like $10-$50 a click. And so we think that we have something a little more valuable in terms of like what we can offer. It's three core use cases. The first core use case is we have a website identity discovery pixel that you put on your website, and it figures out sort of the contact information of the people who visit your website. So we can, Adam Blake, this is the email, this is the phone number, et cetera, et cetera. And then we have all these, automation tools. So it's conversion from website first party visitor data into durable like IDs. A second core use case is around augmenting that understanding. So understanding that Adam's married with kids, lives has these interests, et cetera, et cetera. It's almost like a Facebook ads, but like you think about how Facebook has like thousands of different demographics, interests, and behavior, like ways to slice and dice people. So we have that capability of being able to augment the understanding of who those individuals are. Okay. Why does that matter? It's for generative AI purposes. Like, you can run that through, like, instead of just sending an email, like we can write emails, like we can customize email outreach in a way that just seems shockingly good. Because we know everything about you, and because we understand
your behavior and
exactly. Marketing, it's like people want to look in a mirror, and we have the mirror. Like we know everything about the recipient. I would describe this as like a CDP, like a customer data platform, which traditionally has been for bigger companies, but I think generative AI is quite transformative and unlocks like this value prop for yes a broad swath of like $2 billion businesses.
SMBs.
Yeah, and up. And then the last use case that I want to share is just like we can fix remarketing. Okay, so we can convert data like website visitor data into durable identities, and then using server APIs, we can phone home that data back to Google or Facebook ads or TikTok ads. And remember how I was saying like ads are difficult ROI in 2023. Well, the exception to this is remarketing, but that those campaigns
Right.
generally do work. Kind of the goose that lays the golden hen, or the goose that lays the golden egg, kind of thing. Sorry, the problem with that is like iOS 17 is just not executing Facebook scripts and or Google scripts, and Chrome is killing third-party cookies, and it's just maybe
harder.
Yeah, in 2023, your audiences are a tenth or less of what they used to be in 2014. So we can kind of audience recovery, which is kind of a great solution to kind of remarket like it's 2014 again. And so
I don't know if that headline's going to sell, but but I know what you mean.
It's just, these are really interesting use cases, and some people think it's like too good to be true, and like that's the kind of like reception that we're getting. It's very excited to bring this to market, and we've got incredible use cases. Like, I don't know, like, do you know Robert Kiyosaki, like the Rich Dad Poor Dad guy?
Sure.
Yeah, like that's the guy whose books I was reading like back in 2000.
It works.
Like,
it works. You just need to read his books.
well, his whole shtick is like you have to feel uncomfortable in order to foster the urgency to grow, and it just got me thinking like I was just way too comfortable, running my little agency shtick. So anyways, the long story short, full circle, he's a customer of our company. And if you visit, awesome. if you visit, richdadpoordad.com, there's maybe a 23% chance that we have your data in our system, and we'll figure out who you are, and they'll start sending you like personal finance tips, and it converts really well for them. Like they, they're trying to sell like event tickets and books and stuff like this, and they love it. So just, and that's just one of like, thousands of businesses. But I think that this is something that everyone should use. So long answer, but that's what we do, and I'm very excited about it.
It's awesome to see you in this mode. I mean, as we said earlier, we've known each other for years, and when I see you in this mode of, hey, look, it's almost like, guys, it's stupid obvious. Why doesn't everybody see this? Like, I'm just gonna go do it. When you get in that mode, it's very effective, and so it's exciting to see you in that place.
Yeah, we're like getting one call closes, that kind of thing. Like it feels great.
That's awesome.
What are you doing? What are you doing differently this time around, Larry? Like specifically, I mean, second-time founders always have a lot of scar tissue, and they're just thinking of things in different order, in different ways. What are some of those for you?
The biggest one is just being a little bit more products centric. So I have like WordStream didn't sell a dime self-service. Okay, it was all like a inside sales generated sale. Now we made it very efficient. Like we did lead qualification through the product, and we had it down pretty tight, but it was still like we were hiring like 27 inside sales reps in a month. Okay, at one point. Okay, sorry, in a quarter. So like we weren't sharpening the product by 10x to 10x the like the revenue. We were 10xing the sales reps, or something like it was an incredible ground game, like in terms of like operational capabilities. And this, like, I actually have to give all the credit to my operating partners for that ability, and like unicorn of operations, basically. Um, you know, I don't think we have that scenario set up here in my new company. I think we have like 5 or 6 inside sales reps, and the goal is not to generate 100 of them. Like, it's to find more scalable, product-led opportunities to scale this growth. And while I can't reveal everything like on this podcast, unfortunately, like I think like that's your question is like, how will it be different? I think it would look more like some of these newer SaaS companies that are product-led, as opposed to more of an inside sales-led revenue. That implies like your value has to be idiot proof. That implies like the activation, like people, you have to have like 30, 40, 50% activation rates, like, which was unheard of. Like, for just random people off the street trying this thing out. It's just a different, the experience is relevant, but it's not relevant because like sometimes it's even a disadvantage. Like you try to solve the problems according to pattern recognition of things that you remember, but the answers are actually significantly different, in 2023 versus what they were in 2014 or whatever. So.
No, 100%. That makes a lot of sense. I think, what I'm hearing, and, Adam and I teach this class on go-to-market at MIT, and a lot of what we think about is how is it different for second-time founders? And I think putting what you're saying in other words is that you're thinking about it go-to-market first. Like, you wouldn't have built this company the way that you have if you hadn't put the go-to-market as like core to what you're building, to the point where the product is part of that go-to-market, right? So that you get the scalability and all the efficiencies that you didn't have in your kind of inside sales-led mode before, right?
Sure. And I think it's just the market demands it. Like if you like all
Right.
the SaaS mysteries have been solved, and they have clear expectations on gross margins and CAC to LTV and net dollar retention, that you just can't arrive into those kind of top 10 percentile, top 2 percentile of kind of leaders, without radically departing from some of the lesser scalable go-to-markets of a decade ago.
Yeah, I also think, you never want to compete on everyone else's terms, right? Like, if you're just trying to outcompete them operationally, that it's not just boring, it's just hard, right? If you can outcompete them through something that gives you an advantage, in this case, your product and go-to-market fit, those two things together, because you have this product-led approach, that's so much more interesting as a business. And what you're saying is that the bar has been raised over the last 10 years, because now, operational efficiency is not enough anymore.
It's table stakes. Like you need to operate efficiency, but like, and to his credit, my former collaborator on WordStream, like he was like the top 1% of operational excellence kind of operator. But it's a difficult way, like you're saying, it's a difficult way to scale a business. I'm not sure how defensible that is. Like, like, would you say like an Amazon is like a really strongly, operational excellence type of company, and that's one of their, I guess, no, but they innovate on cloud and Prime and so many other things.
It's hard to make a judgment there, but I do think that what you're saying on operational like excellence is table stakes. I think that's the baseline, right? Like, if you don't have operational excellence, you're not in the game. But if you want to build $1 billion exit, through a
Yeah.
venture-backed company, you need to have something else, another angle, another edge, something that puts you aside, like
Well,
outside of.
and in Amazon's case, I mean, they also are basically a monopoly at this point. So once you've achieved that moat, then maybe operational, excellence is enough to keep it, at least for some period of time, right? Maybe the same could be said of Google. But if you don't have those crazy network effects that give you a monopoly, then it's not going to be enough these
But
days.
yeah, I guess the other thing is Amazon does innovate in ways that I don't see Google necessarily doing, right? Like they've built businesses that are adjacent but not related to their e-commerce core, and turned those into very large companies. Google,
Well, you could say the same of, I mean, Gmail, all these other products.
I don't know. I don't know that they make them money the way that AdWords does.
True. All right.
Yeah. It's just, I'll just go back to that. It's the answers have been pretty different this time around. Like, in terms of like finding, like, a startup is the sum of problems solved. So you're actively trying to solve questions and problems, and the answer, someone changed the questions are completely different, the questions are the same, but the answers are completely different. It's kind of my 2 cents there.
Okay. Well, before we wrap up, just can you talk to us a little bit more about, why entrepreneurship, you have given us a lot of your background. You've talked about the influences that your mom in particular has had on you. But it's also clear that it's not always easy following this path. You've had great success. You've been an outlier. Why should people be interested in pursuing this path? It doesn't always work out, right? And it can be very painful, even if it does work out. People have a lot of scar tissue. So why should anybody be pursuing this path?
Look, I think this is the most fantastic possible thing you could do for yourself, for your community, for your industry, like for your family. Like, too much emphasis is on obtaining skills, like in our education system, around obtaining skills to work for the man, and like I just think it's so much more interesting to think of how you can be this kind of magical intermediary between these investment, capital and the labor workforce, and to be able to kind of combine those and create valuable products for tens of thousands of customers globally. And there's nothing more rewarding than that. In terms of just wealth creation, in terms of job creation, in terms of personal satisfaction, in terms of just raw impact on the economy, on your neighborhood. Like, I was recognized, like I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, for creating about 1,000 jobs in the Boston area with WordStream. And that
that's awesome.
It even got like letters from like senators and congressmen and stuff like this. It was, I mean, not that people really like those people, but nevertheless, still kind of interesting.
Still has some weight, yeah.
So if you're like a parent, I would, I'm a parent. I have a 5-year-old in kindergarten and a 9-year-old. Like, you really got to do what my mom did. It's like you don't just think about like buying things. You also have to teach them about selling things. Like, like and think through. Well, how did this thing get here to the point where where something that you could consume? Because of course, these kids are just consumers of stuff, and then just really, it's not for everyone. Like, I know my oldest boy is not destined for. I mean, I love him very much, but he's not destined for entrepreneurial endeavors. Like, there's a certain risk on kind of personality you need to have. On the other hand, my kindergartner, he likes to litigate everything. He's like he doesn't think things should apply to him. Like, so if you do find yourself in those situations, like this is such a golden opportunity to like what to instill these types of values, and even if it fails, like that's still well, actually, I don't know how much it sucks to fail. So I can't. No, that's not true. Like, I did try out a bunch of unsuccessful like e-commerce type things earlier prior to WordStream. So it just requires the framing of failure as necessary steps, like of learning, like towards a greater future success. Is probably how you would address that. So I think that's a great topic to end on. Just I think entrepreneurship is an incredible calling for yourself or your family members, and I can't say anything but great things about it. So
love it. Well, thank you, Larry, very much for being on Founderlicious. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Larry. This was awesome. Appreciate you sharing your story.
Thanks.